Well, hello everyone. As you know, Amos Tarfa here, Lifestyle Academy. I'm here with Mrs. Kristen Durham and Miss Naomi Durham. I'm excited to do an interview about our program, our K3 program here at Lifestyle Academy. I'm going to start with a story and then I'll pass the ball to Mrs. Durham. This is from the book by David McCullough called The Wright Brothers. I love aviation and I love reading about inventors and people that have changed the world in different ways. If you don't know, France played a huge role in aviation, which influenced the Wright brothers. I'm going to read you a section here. It says that Orville Wright's first grade teacher in grade school, Ida Palmer, she would remember him at his desk tinkering with bits of wood. Asked what he was up to, he told her he was making a machine of a kind that he and his brother were going to fly someday. Now that's someone who is willing to explore and discover and think. That leads me to the Montessori model, which Mrs. Durham will talk to us about. But before we start there, if you don't mind, maybe just share who's Mrs. Durham, and then why do you love Montessori, and Naomi can share as well.
I am Kristen Durham, and we have homeschooled our 7 children for years and years. And before I even knew much about Maria Montessori, I found myself using Maria Montessori's method within our school, where we ran with our child's natural development to guide their learning into the path that they desired to go, which made them flourish within their education. So that is kind of how I stumbled onto becoming a Montessori teacher.
Well, thank you. And Naomi?
Yeah, so I was homeschooled, and I was pushed to learn and grow in what I really desired to learn, and what I loved learning about. So I just would love to help other kids just grow in what they want to learn.
Excellent. And of course, there is a relationship here. Where are you in the 7 kids?
I'm in the middle of 7 kids.
Okay,
Yeah.
the middle of 7 kids. In math, we call that the median. So go look up median. Okay, that's there's a formula for median for even numbers and odd numbers. Okay, but let's leave statistics for a second. One of the things I will mention quickly that I find interesting too is I actually came to America to be a pediatrician, and I believe Maria Montessori was going to be a physician, or is a physician.
Yes.
So tell us about Maria a little bit, or Dr. Maria.
Maria was born in 1870 in Italy, and she, of course, was in a time frame where when women wanted to be wonderful things and start a career in things they weren't allowed to. They had to do classical school and learn literature and language and housekeeping. She was not interested in that. She was interested in engineering. So as she became an engineer, she decided biology was another field that she was interested in, and she applied to a medical school and was the first medical physician in Italy as a woman.
Wow.
So at that point in time, her mother was the only support system that she had. Nobody else was in her family or in the surrounding. Even in the school, she struggled for being accepted as a woman physician. She moved into pediatrics, and they gave her the child psychology unit, and she dealt with a lot of children that had psychological issues. When she entered the realm, she found out that none of these children were given anything to explore. They had no toys, they had no educational materials to flourish, they had nothing. So she moved forward from there, providing those things, and within 2 years, these children were testing up with some of their peers and even exceeding some of them. So it caught on word with the government, and they gave her more and more to do within the fields. And she created a peaceful environment, because this was in the beginning now stages of World War II. And she ended up having to leave Italy because of her disagreements with the government and Mussolini's fascism movements, and open schools in India and all over the world was speaking about how this method worked, and it caught on very well until World War II kind of squashed some of that desire for children to be able to have things to learn freely as they are developing.
Wow. And where did she end up at the end of her life then?
At the end of her life, she ended up just doing a lot of speaking and a lot of she spoke a lot, and then I believe she was in Europe when she passed away.
Okay. Wow, very interesting. When you think about what it's about, right, and I think you mentioned this earlier on, you have these kids who might be in 3rd and 4th grade who initially were very excited about school and now they're not excited about school. You begin to wonder what changed. Why aren't you excited, right? I remember kids who are in 1st and 2nd grade when they're sick or there's a snow day, they're sad. Oh, there's a snow day. Then they get to 4th or 5th grade, there's a snow day. Yay! Why? Why aren't you as excited? So can you speak to that? And then Naomi, I'm going to come back to you and talk about your adventurous spirit because you went to Europe with us. So I want to hear that. But go ahead, Kristen.
I had to retrain my thought. I was talking about Naomi.
No, just like in terms of the 1st, 2nd grade, excited, 3rd, 4th. It's like what's being squished, what's squashed.
So within our school system, of course, kindergartners they've been exploring things since birth. Mm-hmm. They, use all of their sensory. They put things in their mouth, and they're constantly exploring the world around them by crawling, moving, everything that they're doing. And now that they have become accustomed to that as they're learning, they enter this school environment. And usually in kindergarten, they let the children move around and be part of that physical using their body and mind and the direction that they're moving and feeling, and then all of a sudden we make them sit in this desk and stop exploring. Mm-hmm. The biggest thing that we want them to do is explore. If you are interested in astronomy, and let's dig into math and connect math with all of our pieces that we're doing and fill you with all of the tools that you will need to become an astronaut someday, if that's your dream. And exactly like the Wright brothers said, let's fill that dream of where they're at. And using math and language as a tool to dive into all the other subjects and make them alive.
Yep. Wow, so we are excited to raise inventors and people that will invent through those things they're passionate about. Which leads to, of course, Naomi. Naomi and I and 18 other people went to Oxford, Cambridge. So tell us a little bit, why did you do that as far as, what draws you to adventure, I guess? Because you were homeschooled, right?
Yeah.
People think homeschool, maybe you don't want to travel or to stay here, but that's not true.
Yeah, no, I was homeschooled, and I don't know, I just like breaking out of the bubble a little bit, just kind of exploring the world, seeing what else is out there.
Yeah.
Yeah, I loved hearing the history there because just walking around, you don't see very many people who know that much history. Yeah. I just walking around and talking to random people. Yep. Don't know that much about where they live. Yeah. And I just love meeting new people.
Yep. That's exciting. That's good. So for those who have stereotype of homeschoolers, you need to put that away. Homeschoolers are ordinary people that have things they're excited about, and they just do education different from what you might think. But I honestly think the best student-teacher ratio is a good homeschool parent and that child, right? Or a parent who's willing. Because you don't have to be a teacher to be a homeschooler, right? You just need to get the tools, and that's part of what we're hoping to do on Thursday at our event from 4 to 5, and hopefully future coffee hour moments with Mrs. Durham. Because you can learn from those who've done it before, right? Those who've gone before you, right? Kind of like Newton was quoting someone else, by the way, when he said this, but he says, if I have sinned further, it's because I stood on the shoulders of giants. By God's grace, we've been blessed with people like the Durhams who have done homeschooling for a long time. So they're helping us, right? We're really excited for what they're doing for our school. So Mrs. Durham is teaching the K3 classroom. She has 2 assistants, Miss Durham, Naomi, and then as well as Mrs. Barberg. And we just are continuing our series of meeting your teachers. So a couple of questions and then we'll land the plane. But we have Montessori. I think one misconception, or maybe we should talk about a couple misconceptions. What are some misconceptions? When people think Montessori, what are some things that you think, no, that's not it, that's not true? For example, or if the child loves flowers, how's he ever going to do algebra? Because he's smelling flowers all day.
Correct, yeah. There is definitely a misconception that there is no organization or structure to our days. It is structured, it is organized, and they know their path. They know which structured organizational path that makes them happy, in a sense. So they come in excited to explore the room, and they don't sit at desks. They move around in our classroom. They can do their math first. They can do their language first. They might need to paint a picture and do some art first, but they do have a path throughout the day that they need to work through, and they get it done very excitedly because they have that freedom and some independence and a peaceful way to engage in their education.
Yeah. And you can be guaranteed they'll be doing math, right? They will, and especially after Mrs. Durham's years, we give them a lot of math too. So don't worry about questions of, well, will they get enough math time? Oh, they will. And we will, Mrs. Durham and I, we're talking about collaborating between elementary, middle school, high school teachers. Imagine if we're all collaborating and seeing what's working, what needs to be tweaked. Now you have a network, right? One of the things Mrs. Durham has mentioned is, to me in the past, is this idea of taking medicine, for example, and breaking it into little chunks. Okay, you take care of this, you take care of that. And sometimes there can be tension between these different branches of medicine when it needs to be all focused on a common goal. And that's what we want to do here. We want to have a common goal, which is an integrative learning approach that helps a child to learn a topic well, the history of it, the applications. We want you to get excited, right? Someone once said, education is not filling a bucket, it's lighting a fire. And I think Montessori does that pretty well as a model. Now, again, I was going to be a pediatrician because of the work of Dr. Ben Carson, and I loved the work he was doing, inspiring young people. That's what we want to do, inspire in a nutshell. Would you guys agree?
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's it. Now, final thoughts on Montessori. I know you had some notes on her. I don't know if we exhausted it because I think maybe we can land. We did? Okay, so we got everything about Montessori. Let me wrap up with a couple of books I have here. They're not necessarily Montessori specific alone, but I actually use a little bit of Montessori in the sense that when I find someone has a passion for astronomy, for example, then I'm going to say, hey, let's talk about Johannes Kepler. Okay, Kepler was a boss, okay, and he inspired the work of Newton and some other people. The planetary laws come from Johannes Kepler. We already talked about this book, which is the Wright brothers. Someone loves airplanes. Let's dive deep. Let's spend some time. Maybe they can make a better airplane, right? But again, the Wright brothers have done a great job. It's funny that there's two states that fight for the Wright brothers. One of them is like first in flight. The other one is like home of the Wright brothers. How cool is that? The two people are trying to like claim you, right? And they did go to North Carolina to do their flights at Kitty Hawk, but then Ohio is their hometown. So I think that's interesting. What I didn't tell you guys in the beginning of that story, which you'll find interesting, is that their father brought a small helicopter, right? It was a little toy, and just a toy, just a manipulative, just a tool, got them thinking. Isn't that interesting what happens when you start playing? I love that in Mrs. Durham's room, which we're going to do a tour a different day, of the whole place, but today, I'm just saying, in the room, it's so cool that she has different stations and things, and kids are learning practical life skills. We want your kids to know how to cook. I need to learn how to cook better myself, but we want your kids to learn how to cook. We want them to know how to, actually, maybe if you don't mind, tell us some other skills they learn, other than just academic.
Yeah, we have lots of practical life skills. They have a music station, they have art, they have a full working kitchen that is child-sized. They have, help me out, Naomi.
We'll have like
We have sewing machines,
working.
yep, we have chores. We work through cleaning and maintaining our classroom as a whole group. So we're trying to create an environment where this is their community.
Yeah.
So as adults, we talk about, we need community, like we need friends, we need our own community. And children also, they need a community. And in this world today, I think growing up with strong community when they're young is gonna be a very important.
Wow. That's really cool. The community is very important. Now, Mrs. Durham's classroom, of course, is getting full. We thank God. That's good. However, some of you are like, well, what am I going to do if it gets full? Well, I hope that she will do some more discussions with families to help them get the tools going in their homes. And then I would love to see multiple Montessori classrooms here in the future someday. So hopefully we'll just start a little training ground. And just because if the kids come from that element of really learning to flourish in their gifts into 4th grade, 5th grade, and so on, let them just keep going. Let them keep shining, because that's what they should be doing rather than sitting there maybe wasting time on a smartphone or things like that, right? Last 3 books and then we'll land the plane. Scientists of Faith. Some of these people, I will say their education was kind of like Montessori because they were allowed to explore, to go far in the things they loved, especially the math ones, right? They did a lot of math and that's why they could graduate college at like 15. Speaking of France, this is Blaise Pascal's book. Another man died at 39, but he explored. He opened the door in pressure. The unit for pressure is Pascal. Why is this important? Notice that we're teaching physics, we're teaching math and life science, but we're teaching about the people, we're teaching about the time, and we're letting the kids explore deeper into the topics they love. The last one is not so much just about one person, but this is actually about somewhat the French Revolution, the Enlightenment period. It's called The Return of the God Hypothesis. And the author, Stephen Meyer, does a great job of just telling stories of scientists that, again, have changed the world over time, but they did it on the basis of the faith element. So I want to end with that, which is that they had faith and then they did their work. Montessori education is not generally by itself, right? They don't say this is a Montessori Christian education. No, we are a Christian school or a Christian, that's our first premise. But the model or the methods, we're using a Montessori approach. Have you ever heard that element of the faith element in Montessori? If we wanted to land on that, what have you heard about that? Has that been a concern for people?
Yeah, I mean, the incorporation of peace. I don't know outside of Christ how you can have a peace environment, but one of the main things that she was about, that her time frame was very war oriented. There was a lot of chaos, there was a lot of poverty, and she noticed that the children would flourish way more with peace. And outside of Christ, I don't see that you can really understand the depth of peace that can be created within that. So that's how we draw them into the Montessori way, is through just creating an internal peace within yourself, and knowing that God is a piece of is the core of that.
Yeah, so it all starts with God. The fear of God is the beginning of all wisdom. Ultimately, our dream, our goal, our aspiration is that everyone grows in their knowledge of Christ, that they come to know Him if they don't know Him, and then that they become who He made them to be. That's when it's all said and done. What will it profit a man to gain the whole world and lose his own soul? So we want to raise the best students that we can raise and help families, partner with families. This is a partnership. But ultimately, we want those students to become who God made them to be and to represent Christ wherever He takes them. Thank you for watching this episode of Meet the Teachers. I really appreciate Mrs. Durham and Naomi. Thanks again for coming to Oxford and Cambridge. I hope you enjoyed it.
Yeah.
And Scotland, I think Oxford was our favorite. Would you say?
Yes, I would 100% agree.
Okay, well, God willing, in a few years we're going to go to Oxford. Naomi is looking forward to whenever we go. I asked her, where do you want to go next? Anywhere.
Anywhere, as long as I get to come.
Yes, and then she's also helping with the young ladies in the cohorts and group discussions. So stay tuned. You guys will see her around. Take care and God bless.